My presentation is the Lockmaster's treasure. The Lockmaster's treasure is a treasure that is hidden near the Jones Falls Locks located in Elgin, Ontario. This treasure was hidden by the former lockmaster of the Davis Lock, Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis had a bad habit of keeping gold and silver that he was supposed to use to pay the landowners and the workers of his lock. When Mr. Davis left to visit the United States, he caught the whooping cough. It's unknown why he left to go to the United States, but it's suspected that it had to do with Mr. Davis trying to receive more gold coins. Mr. Davis returned after a quick visit to the United States, and his whooping cough got worse. One of the first things that Mr. Davis did when he got back from the United States was hide a big sack of gold, silver, and jewels near his lock. Days after he hid his treasure, he died very suddenly, which meant he never told anybody where he buried his treasure. It's unknown if his death had to do with Mr. Davis catching the whooping cough, but it is highly possible that this could have caused his death. And to this day, nobody has found his treasure. How do locks work? A lock has a lock chamber, which is a brick, stone, or metal and holds the water. To allow boats to get in and out and to keep the water in, there are gates at each end of the lock. Sometimes there is one single lock gate, but other times there are two double lock gates, and these are pushed open by the balance beams on the gates. It's only possible to open a gate when the water levels on both sides are the same. So the top lock will only open when the lock is full of water, and the bottom lock will only open when the lock is empty or close to empty. What is a lock? A lock can be two things: a mechanism for keeping your things locked up and safe, or a mechanism used almost like a dam that helps get boats from one level to another. In this case, we're talking about the second type of lock. The lock that I'm talking about is almost like a dam, but it does a little more than just keep water flowing in the right direction. It keeps the water in rivers from flowing too high or low. The difference between a lock and a dam is that locks carry boats up and down from one level to another, but dams don't do this. Who is Mr. Davis? Mr. Davis is the former lockmaster of the Rideau Canal. A lockmaster is a person or possibly a group of people. However, in this case, it's a person who directs the operations of a lock. For many years, people have tried to figure out Mr. Davis's first name, but they were not able. This is because Mr. Davis was so official and highly respected that the only people who he let call him by his first name were his parents. For many generations before Mr. Davis, many of his family members were also former lockmasters or had something to do with these incredible locks, and this tradition has continued on to this day. There is a lot unknown about Mr. Davis because it was said that he was a very secretive man who kept to himself most of the time. One of the things that was never publicly revealed about Mr. Davis was his date of birth, but it's suspected that he was born in the early 1820s and died around the 1890s. Mr. Davis is described as a brutally honest, secretive, and having a big ego. Because of this, many people did not like Mr. Davis, but he was still highly respected by most of his community because they knew how much power he held. Mr. Davis kept secrets around whether or not he had a wife or a girlfriend because he was a wealthy man, and it was said that he was afraid somebody might try to kidnap or rob whoever he may have been with. Despite this, it was suspected that Mr. Davis did have a wife because there was a woman he was spotted with that had a ring on her finger. This is important because the ring she was wearing had lots of gold and silver on it. And again, this is important because Mr. Davis owned lots of gold and silver because it's how he paid most of his workers. And most other rings at the time only had diamonds, not gold or silver. It's suspected that Mr. Davis never had any kids because he was never spotted with kids or around kids. So if Mr. Davis did have kids, he kept it a very good secret. Mr. Davis was not liked by many people because it was said that he was racist. Unfortunately, during this time in history, racism was not uncommon. However, it's one of the many reasons that some people did not like Mr. Davis. Another reason that people did not like Mr. Davis was because he bragged about his wealth to the not so wealthy. But none of the people who said this were any of Mr. Davis's family members. Mr. Davis's family all said that they liked him and that he was a great guy to be around, but who knows if this is actually true. People's opinions on Mr. Davis were often completely opposite. People either really liked him and thought he was a great person to be around, or they landed on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, where they didn't like him at all and they thought he was a terrible person to be around. It was never really confirmed if one of these sides was more true than the other, but from the way people described him, it sounds like he may have been more on the bad side than the good. Where are Mr. Davis's family today? Today, there are not very many known relatives of Mr. Davis, but as time goes on and our technology gets more advanced, there have been two people who have traced back in their family tree and found out that they are related to Mr. Davis. These people are John and Maddie. John and Maddie are siblings, and they found out that they were related to Mr. Davis 3 years ago. Now that they know they and their family are related to the Mr. Davis, they are trying to learn more about him and his treasure. More info. This treasure has never been found. It's suspected that this treasure is still in its original hiding place, but not very many people have ever tried to find this treasure since it's not very well known. This is a very cool treasure, but since it's hidden in a very wide range of space, not very many people have ever tried to find this treasure.